Here we go, it's recording. Welcome everyone to just a Course in Miracles uh, teaching, chat, sharing, just a joining. So I felt prompted, Annie asked me to speak today, and I felt prompted just to share something out of the course. I mean, it's interesting when you go through, you flick through the pages. For me now, it's just saying the same thing over and over in different ways. Just different words, but always pointing to the same teaching. So the teaching is that I'm sinless, you're sinless, we're one in sinlessness, which is not form, but content. Content is what's not form. So it's our guiltlessness, our spirit or mind as we were created. So it's our true self, which is not form. So our self with a capital S has no form, but it is something tangible to us. It's something that we are, but we've lost awareness of. And as we work with the Holy Spirit in our right mind, we come to know ourselves basically as the Holy Spirit. We're going to know ourselves as something that was created by infinite, vast, eternal love. And that's going to be our experience. So that's still in our mind. That is in our mind now. We don't have to try to conjure up sinlessness like as if it's disappeared. It hasn't disappeared. It's still there. It's like if you've got a room in your house that you've never seen, it's because there's a wall there. There's a block between you and that room. The same is like in a split mind. It's like there's a wall there, there's blocks. So it's interesting that the word block is used because you can actually see, like, sometimes bricks are called blocks, and blocks can form a wall or what he calls a veil. So we see it as these big blocks like bricks. So the bricks come down. The way I saw it was the bricks come down one by one. But in the end, that brick wall that we thought was a brick wall is actually, like he says, it's like a tiny wall of sand just brushed by. But to us, they're blocks. It's the ego, and the ego are the blocks. The ego is perception. It's a thought system that creates our perception. So how we look at everything, what meaning we put on it is perception. So perception is, if I'm perceiving something, it doesn't mean I'm just looking at it. Some people think perception is the eye seeing something, but it's the meaning I give it, the story I live in as I look at it. So it actually encompasses probably both the seeing of it and the meaning of it. Okay, so because the actual seeing of it, the eyes that look at the world they're not actually, they're looking at images, but the perception that we're using is the ego's mind. And all that, we think that the seeing of it and the perception we think are joined together. We have to have our perception changed of what we're looking at, and then what we're looking at changes. So we have to go back into the mind and have our perception cleaned. So we have to have our mind changed about what we're looking at. And then what we look at will change, and even we will see, even though we think we're seeing with our eyes, we can actually have certain things like light come in. We can actually see things. And what we come to experience at certain times in our journey is that we might even come to see that our eyes are never seeing. We're like watching a movie. We're like watching, we're like, the best way, which I've described before, the best way is I've seen it is being like in an avatar in a virtual reality, in a simulated world. So we feel that we're in this body and we're looking at our life, but actually, and we've never come into a body. We're somewhere else viewing this thing that we call this body and looking at living this life. So we have to step back through the mind. We have to go back into the mind to get to the place where we can see that eyes are never seeing. That it's like we think that the eyes are looking at the world, but it's not. We're in a seeing of a looking as if we're in something that's eyes are looking at the world, but we're back further using what seems to be a body in a world. And this can be hard to actually fathom, that I'm not in a body and my eyes aren't looking at a world and I'm not in a world and this world can't affect me, because it's like a hallucination or a dream or a simulation or a virtual reality. So we have to go out the way we came in terms of we fell asleep through layers. So what I've noticed for my own journey was I had to go, I had to admit to the Holy Spirit that I felt like I was looking through eyes at a world, and I wanted to have my perception changed. So in the Course, he says, you either believe this Course entirely or not at all. So in other words, if you don't believe one thing about this Course, or one tiny aspect of its teaching, you don't believe any of it. So you have to believe in it entirely or not at all. Not at all, in other words, if you think that what I'm saying or what Jesus is pointing to is impossible, it couldn't happen, I'm here in a world, I'm touching it, it feels real, what he's saying can't be true, I want to just take this little bit of the Course and leave this little bit out, you won't believe at all. You won't believe you can have peace. You will judge your brother. You will stay asleep in a dream, looking like you're in a body, experiencing a world. He's trying to take us right out. And my mind has been, even over the last few years, even over the last month, it's always getting more and more away from the world. It's taking, I call it just, my prayer, just take me deeper. It is freedom. He says our natural state is to not be in a body. So, we want to stop identifying as a body and start identifying as spirit, as I like to call it the love of God, because that's the experience that we want to have, rather than the experience of body identification. I'm just going to have a little drink. So one of the things, I think what happened for me, I dilly-dallied with the Course for 14 years. I did the lessons and I read the text off and on for 14 years, but I must admit, I was a little bit fearful. Well, the ego was fearful of the course. But when you come to the course and you say, right, I'm all in, I'm doing this course properly, well, I'm going to, so what that does is that brings readiness. He says it's not mastery as yet. He says all you are is ready. You're coming to his teachings. You're coming to the Course in Miracles teaching and saying, okay, I'm ready to accept all these teachings. So you make up your mind that you want the teachings, that you're ready for them. And so you're not a master yet, but you're ready to be a student. So you then go through your mind training. And I'm always banging on about this, but it's like, to do that, you have to come and see that nothing has worked in this world. Now, what the course takes you through can be quite not what you think it's going to be, because you think that you're going to have a better life. But somehow, well, you will in a way, but the ego thinks that if it does the course, it's sort of going to it's going to come along for the ride. But it's what we see is it's getting undone. So the ego is the thing that's getting undone. And the ego is this false self that we take ourselves to be. This whole identity as Kate, as I believe this and I like that, and all these beliefs that Kate has about the world all have to be undone. Every single one of them. And Jesus is working towards getting us to have a unified thought system, a thought system based on the Holy Spirit. And that takes as long as it takes. So when he says you believe this course entirely or not at all, that doesn't mean it's not helpful to do the course, even if you don't fully believe in it. I do think that the 14 years that I read the course and did the lessons, I did some of the lessons, I never finished them for 14 years. I do believe that helped me when I was ready. So the readiness is to, okay, Jesus, I'm ready to have my mind trained, because the thing about it, if you've ever had any thoughts of suicide, which are usually, it's the ego will say, you need to kill yourself to be free. If you've ever had those thoughts, it means that you've seen that there's no real happiness here, that happiness can't come from anything outside of you. So we go within, so we have our perception change. So I've just got to keep an eye on the time, because I know I can talk for quite a long time. Now I'm just going to be reading from chapter 21 in the Blue Book, section 5, the function of reason. Perception selects and makes the world you see. It literally picks it out as the mind directs. So if you have a belief in guilt, if you think you're guilty, you're going to find that guilt in the world, in someone or some situation. Our perception finds it. It's not there. No one is guilty. But the perception, the ego's perception, selects it. The laws of size and shape and brightness would hold, perhaps if other things were equal. They are not equal. For what you look for, you are far more likely to discover than what you would prefer to overlook. So the forgiveness is overlooking, looking past. So how we undo the ego is the ego is always going to find the guilt or the judgment on others. And Jesus is just asking us to overlook it. The still small voice for God is not drowned out by all the ego's raucous screams and senseless ravings to those who want to hear it. Perception is a choice, not a fact. Now that's a really good line. So, but let me just back up a bit about the ego. One of the things you can start to notice as you start to undo the ego, as you start to look past it, you'll start to see that it ramps up and it starts to look like it's really screaming and shrieking at you, that it sort of feels like, no, this person is really guilty. They are guilty. You're crazy for not thinking they're guilty, and it really starts to scream at you about what's going to happen if you seemingly it sees it as let the person off the hook or something. So it has this story that it's going to scream at us. Perception is a choice and not a fact. So when we perceive the world, however we're perceiving it, so with perception, it's like perception is the story that's going on, the constant commentary in our mind of everything we look at. So say we get up in the morning, the first thing we have in our mind is a story about how the day is going to be. We check the weather, we make up a story about the weather. We might just, whatever you think about the day or anything particular or general, the commentary that's going on in your mind is perception. So in other words, the weather is just weathering, but the meaning that we put on it when we say, oh, it's going to be a good day, the sun's out, or it's going to be a terrible day, it's overcast and it's a bit cooler than it was yesterday, or something like that. Perception, what it does is it puts a meaning on everything and it judges it good or bad, or right or wrong. It's always judging. The ego's perception is always judging everything. It's just judges. That's all it does, is the ego just judges constantly. But what happens is we think that the perception is what it is. So if someone's perceiving something differently, and egos agree on some things and they disagree on other things, their perception, right? But we think that the perception is what it is. We look at the world and we think, yes, this is what it is. This is a good day or this is a bad day. We never question our perception. But what he says to us is that what we're finding is what's in our mind, which is, believe it or not, we're using the ego to perceive. Anytime we're finding differences, good or bad, right or wrong, it's the ego. The ego, its thought system is always at the bottom of the thought system is always separation. It's duality. It's so but when we see that it's a choice, not a fact, that's when we can start to think, okay, so what I'm perceiving and how I'm looking at the world is not an actual fact, this idea that this is the way it is not a fact. It's a choice. So I'm choosing to see it like that. It's my choice to see it that way. And what happens is when you start to really get that, what happens is it's like we start to, what he's pointing us to is a way home by telling us that how we're viewing people and situations and our past is not what it is. It's something that we have chosen to believe as a fact. We think this is a fact, but actually it's our choice. That's why he says we're responsible for everything that happens, which is the happening is our being upset or happy. That's the happening, because it's not what's going on. The happening, when he says I'm responsible for what happens to me, he means I'm responsible for whether I'm experiencing happiness or sadness or depression. And so how I am responsible for that is because I get to choose which voice I listen to. So once you know that you have a choice and you've been living in seemingly this unchoice, you think this is a fact. So how I thought about my dad, I was very cemented in my belief about my dad. I would not allow anyone else's point of view to change that. I would not allow. If anyone said anything nice about my dad, I would completely dismiss it and shore up my perception of my dad. And so what I did was I never was able to see that how I was perceiving him and what seemingly happened, how I was perceiving the situation. I thought it was a fact. I was living as if my perception was a fact, and I didn't open myself up to another way of perceiving the situation. So it's really good to see that the still small voice for God is not drowned out by the ego's shrieking. So the still small voice that is going to help us can't be drowned out. It's still there. So we need to quieten our minds and just say, Holy Spirit, this is what the ego's screaming is saying. I give this screaming, raucous voice away. I let it go. I want the peace of God and I want your version of what happened. I want a completely new view of the past. And that's the holy instant is when I ask for that and accept it. And I get the miracle. The miracle means that I've allowed a new perception to come in. And I'm now looking at my brother differently. And who gets the benefit of that? Me. No one else. Well, someone else will get it. The other minds that are around me get the benefit of it because I can't be healed alone. So others are healed around me. I don't have to go and heal them. They're naturally healed as I'm doing my forgiveness, because I'm actually starting to see my brother's call for help and love rather than living the ego story that I'm, cemented and stuck in. So I'm only upset because I'm stuck in a story that the ego's put into my perception. So even if when I lived in my story of, how bad my dad was, if I say I went around to see him and he was kind and nice to me, I would immediately disregard that, or the ego disregards that and constantly reinforces the past, this past that it's judged him and brings it forward. And so we start to see that no one is really good or bad here. They're really just in their ego, like us. They're in their ego, fearful, scared, searching for love, searching for happiness, and confused, like we are. So they've got their perception going on, and we have too. So perception is a choice, not a fact, but on this choice depends far more than you may realise as yet. For on the voice you choose to hear and on the sights you choose to see depends entirely your whole belief in what you are. Perception is a witness but to this, and never to reality. So what it comes down to is, what do I think I am? Do I think I'm this tiny little body in a little world, separated, little, vulnerable? And if I do, I'm going to find attack. If I'm identifying as something vulnerable and that can be attacked, I'm going to defend and see attack coming at me, and I'm going to feel that I need to attack back. So my perception of the world as being attacked and attacking is all based on the fundamental belief of what I am. That's what needs to change. That the essence of the source of how I'm viewing the world. So I go right back, and what gets changed is the Holy Spirit's changing our perception from body identification to spirit identification. And that changes how we see the world. So, but on the voice you choose to hear and on the sights you choose to see depends entirely your belief, your whole belief in what you are. So if I'm spirit, I'm going to see spirit. If I feel like I'm the ego, the voice that I'm listening to is the ego, and it says I'm this tiny little body, I'm going to see bodies, and the whole thing comes in. When you're thinking with the ego, you're always thinking with a thought system that is it's like the whole ego thought system is like a bubble, like a huge big ball. You could see yourself stuck in that ball, and in that ball are all the thoughts of the ego. And you're basically all day long choosing from those thoughts. And every single thought in that bubble, or in that split part of the mind that's walled off from the truth, every single thought is based on separation, on duality. So you can't get out of it. You cannot ever find happiness and peace when you're choosing the ego. It's never, ever going to bring you happiness and peace, because it's a whole thought system that it's at its base. Its belief is that you're separate, and it's going to find in the world and in the images. And it's literally like, it's amazing. Like when I started to see all this, I could actually watch when I was choosing the ego and finding guilt in another. I was also able to watch myself do it. And I had this beautiful, wonderful lessons. And the Holy Spirit was sort of like there, but I was seeing from his point of view. He was showing me what I was doing. And it's amazing when you get that, when you see it. I remember I met with someone who I'd already was deciding was guilty. And look, it's so hidden and so justified by the ego. That's why it takes great willingness and readiness to say, I was sort of like in the border, you could say. I was like wanting to choose the ego's guilt, but also really saying, hang on, I know I'm doing this, but wanting. So we're sort of like moving between the observer and the ego. So it was like wrangling there. And when I went to meet this person, I could literally was watching the ego saying, see what she's saying now? See, this means that. See, she's trying to attack you. She's trying to exclude you. She's doing this, she's doing that. And I was like being able to see what I was like doing two things at once. I was watching my mind wanting to do that, but I was also had an awareness of myself doing it. So I was like in two aspects. And I was able to come away from that interaction and sit down and able to review it with the Holy Spirit and just sort of say, see how you did it, but see, she did nothing. She was just talking about things. And can you see how you went in and you went, oh yeah, that's the meaning. Yeah, she doesn't want to do that. So it's unbelievable when you start to see all the meanings the ego puts on all the things that people do and say. It's absolutely mind-blowing how the ego story just has to find attack, guilt, sin, you know. And so we have to become more and more aware of how we're trying to find it in others, and the Holy Spirit will help us. We have to constantly choose the voice that overlooks it, gives us another perception, and says this is not how it was. So initially you're going to be, when you start the course, you're in this idea, no, this is a fact. And then you have to say, well, if I want to have peace, I have to let go of that as a fact and say, I'm open for another perception of this. And that takes a lot of willingness and readiness to say, this thing that I've always believed in and had this concrete thing as a fact. Jesus says there's no facts. They're just your perceptions and they can be changed. And the reason why you want them changed is they're going to bring a great deal of freedom, and they're going to heal your mind, and your body will be generally, in what happens is your body is released from pain and sickness. And that was my motivation. I really wanted to have my body free of sickness, free of fatigue. So that's why Jesus is trying to motivate us to do this course and believe in it and come along for the ride with it. And we're not bad or sinful for thinking that this is a fact. He's just sort of correcting us and saying, I'll just wait for you. You can hang on to that idea as a fact for 20 or 30 years. But the minute you're ready for a change of perception, I'm here for you. I'll bring it in. So we don't have to concern ourselves if we still want to hang on to something that seemingly upsets us. We can hang on to something that upsets us for a long period of time. It really says this need not be. So perception is a witness but to this and never to reality. So perception is a witness to the ego's interpretation of separation. So perception, it just finds in the world what's in the mind. Yet it can show you the conditions in which Awareness of reality is possible for those where it could never be. Reality needs no cooperation from you to be itself. I'm just going to see, I think someone else has joined. Right. I think, Kevin, are you there?
Yeah.
I think your microphone's on, love.
Okay. I've just. Sorry.
Oh, you've got two things on.
Yeah,
It's echoing.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll end this. Sorry.
sorry. So reality needs no perception to be itself. Reality is God, is love, is truth. It doesn't need us to perceive it for it to be itself. It is what it is. It's itself. God is all there is. We're part of God, and we can either join that or try to live in an unreal state, which is depression, anxiety, fear, blame, jealousy, lack, all that. We don't have to, though. We don't have to live like that. We can be free. This is a way to be free. And that's it. So he's saying your awareness of it needs help because it is your choice. Listen to what the ego says and see what it directs you see. And it is sure that you will see yourself as tiny, vulnerable, and afraid. You will experience depression, a sense of worthlessness, and feelings of impermanence and unreality. You will believe that you are helpless prey to forces far beyond your own control and far more powerful than you. So we can start to think, is this true? Yeah. We can all remember or think, for me it's a memory because I don't experience that anymore. But if you're feeling those experiences, that's what he says, that you will believe that you are helpless prey to forces far beyond your control and far more powerful than you. So these forces seem far more powerful. I'm tiny, vulnerable, and afraid. And I related to that very much so. And you will think the world you made directs your destiny. So we think we've got no power over our destiny. We think that, we're battered around by the world. But this is so not true. For this will be your faith, but never believe because it is your faith. But never believe because it is your faith, it makes reality. There is another vision and another voice in which your freedom lies, awaiting but your choice. And if you place your faith in them, which is them is capital T, which is your true thoughts, your thoughts with God, you will perceive another self in you. So this sort of self that we think we are, that's separate and afraid and vulnerable, we're going to start identifying with this other self, which is a spirit, invulnerable and capable of beautiful miracles, of going out and extending God's love. This other self sees miracles as natural. In other words, this holy self that we are is going to see miracles and natural expressions of love. They are as simple and as natural to it as breathing to the body. That's it. It's not going to be, I have to go out and do miracles today. You're going to be doing miracles all day long. You're going to be extending God's love naturally to everyone you meet. To be a miracle worker is just to see your brother sinless, see his call for love, meet that call for love, help in any way you're guided to. That's it. Your whole day, it's not like you have to, this walking on water and all this sort of stuff. It's not about that. It's just about simply being God's love in the world, simply seeing the call for love rather than the projected guilt that the ego wants to put on to all the characters. So this other self sees miracles as natural. They are as simple and as natural to it as breathing to the body. They are the obvious response to calls for help, and only one and the only one it makes. In other words, we respond to calls for help and see it's the only one anyone makes. So in other words, no matter what anyone's saying or doing, they say it's either love or a call for love. So I like to sort of look at as if everyone's got a sticker on their head, their forehead, and it says, will you love me? Will you love me completely, unconditionally? Will you just love me? No matter what I do or say today, will you just love me? Even when I'm in my ego, will you just love me? Could somebody just love me no matter how I am today? I'm fearful, happy, sad, depressed. Can you not try to fix me? Can you not try to give me advice? Can you not try to tell me to cheer up or go take a walk or drink something or eat something? Can you just love me? Can you just sit with me? Can you just see my absolute perfection as I truly am? Miracles seem unnatural to the ego because it does not understand how separate minds can influence each other. Nor could they do so, but minds cannot be separate. So one of the things about miracles is the miracle, to me, it has two aspects to it. It probably has more, but for me, it's simplified. The miracle is a correction of my perception, and from that correction, I'm then going to see the call for love instead of the judgment that I've placed on that person. But what Jesus is asking us to do is to have our perception. So he's talking about having our perception cleared, and then we're only going to see the call for love. And we can think about our own call for love. Can you, if you can sit down and just think about how you're always calling for love. You're always saying, wouldn't it be wonderful if I had a mother or a father or a sister or a brother or a friend that just completely loved me, never judged me, always just loved me and just said, oh, don't worry about that. Oh, that thing you said the other day, don't worry about that. I'm not concerned with that. Remember, Jesus says just to let the ego go. Any judgment you have on your brother, no matter what they do. He even says at one stage, let them be as vicious or as nasty as they like. So even if an ego comes at you angry and seemingly nasty and vicious, same thing. Not interested, not going to judge you. You're in your wrong mind. My job is to not respond to that wrong mind with my wrong mind. My job is to see the hidden call for love, call for help behind it. And how I respond to you is always going to be loving, but what I suggest is just asking the Holy Spirit to guide you in your response. So minds can't be separate. Your mind, all our minds together, they're not separate, they're joined. Everyone's joined in the one mind. There's no separation with that. We all have it. We're all part of it. We're not bodies. We're this mind, and we're all in it. So when I'm in it, you're in it, and I can bring you closer to this holy mind as I see your holiness. I can assist you, but I'm not, but when he says, when we are this love in the world and extend God's love, we don't have to worry about outcomes. All we have to do is be the extension of that. We just have to love and bless. We make no demands on our brother. In other words, if our brother is, say our brother is vicious or says something nasty to us or something, we overlook it. We say, yes, he's just calling for love. He or she's calling for love, understanding, kindness, gentleness. What can I do to help? Now, it might be that you make them a cup of tea, or you say to them, look, is there anything I can do to help? Are you stressed out about something? Can I help you in some way? Or you might just be guided to listen. They might just need someone to listen to them. Not say, hey, this is too much, stop speaking about all this, I can't handle what you're saying. Just listen. You don't have to take it on, just let it go through. You're really just letting them empty out. And then once they're emptied out, they can feel heard. And you might like to say, yeah, I can hear that you're really concerned about this, this and this. Well, let's see what we can do. And you could say, for example, there's something, they're sick, they need a doctor or something or other, whatever it is. You can just sit and listen to guidance, and someone or something might come into your awareness that could be helpful for them. So this is how we work as miracle workers in the world. We just sit. Now, nothing might come in, and that might be what the answer is. You don't always get something. And it might be, look, I'm not sure what to do. Why don't we just wait for a little while? Why don't we just sit? What about if I just stay with you and sit with you and be with you for a little while? And, is there anything that you'd like? Would you like me to leave? Would you like me to stay? So we can really become something that is helpful right at that moment. Jesus says we may not say to someone something at the highest level that we could teach at. We're going to speak to that other at the level that they can understand. So we have to, that's why the Holy Spirit will speak to others where they're at. You might be able to speak the highest truth about the Course in Miracles or Jesus' teachings. But for someone who is in a particular certain amount of fear, it might just be a back rub. It just might be a hug. It just might be something will be brought into your mind. It could be helpful. And that's really what I do. There's some people that I speak to at the highest level of the Course's teachings. And then I speak to people that are so caught up in so much fear, their mind is like frozen in fear. I give very simple techniques, just something that wouldn't be sort of from the Course. It is from the Course, but it's not. It's something that comes through and is helpful at that time. And they say, oh, yes, I can do that. So the Holy Spirit is going to use you for wherever you're at, whoever you're with. And he's going to guide you in what to say and what to do. And that your job is to make sure that you never see anyone that is sick or depressed. Even though you're responding to it, you're not perceiving it. In other words, you perceive the absolute. When you're seeing the Holy Son of God, there's no sickness or depression or anxiety in the Holy Son of God. The perfect child of God, the content, not the form. you're going past all that stuff that the world sees, and you're seeing with only holiness. And you're going to bless that person with your holiness. So Kevin's just had to step away for a little while. So we're going to, so we as miracle workers, and you don't have to be fully awakened to the love of God to be a miracle worker. He says anyone who's practicing forgiveness is a teacher of God. For anyone to be seen truly is a gift from heaven, to have someone in your life that is just loving you. When we make no demands that our brother changes, that we let go, we constantly let go of anything the ego's judging our brother about. Any time, any story it brings in that they're guilty or they're bad or they need to shut up or they're talking too much or they're not talking enough or they shouldn't have said this, or just notice the story and let it go. Jesus says we're going to have ego thoughts, but none we want to keep. Don't keep them. He says don't harbour them. Don't yield to them. So you're going to have them, but don't keep them. Let them go. Move into a holy view of your brother, that he is innocent, that he's not a body, that he's created his true self, which isn't any form. His true self is created by God as love, and he's forgotten. So it's not my job to tell him. My job is to bring him into my peace. My job is to bring him in, let him rest in my restful mind, is to make no demands of him. I don't demand that you change what you're saying to me or how you say it. Keep saying how you say it, doesn't affect me. I'm here to demonstrate that what my brother is doing or saying has no effect on me. So I'm showing him that he's not an ego. And through that, the miracle occurs in him. He gets the miracle. He gets the miracle that he's not bad for being in his ego. I'm the demonstration of that. I'm the Christ in the world. That's my job. And healing occurs in the mind as our minds are joined. Their mind's healed along with ours. You can't be healed alone because we're all connected. Now minds are joined. So I'm just noticing the time, and I feel that I'm prompted to sort of wrap it up. I've said enough. So I'd just like to say a prayer of gratitude for the Holy Spirit, Jesus, God. I'm grateful for all the teachers here and gone that have taught me, helped me. I'm grateful for my group here in Melbourne. I'm grateful for everyone that's part of this group, part of just joining. I'm just grateful for everyone everywhere, really. So we're seemingly in a world, but we're not. We can't deny our experience, but we can have it all changed. We can use what the ego made for God's purposes, for holy purposes. We can turn the purpose of the body around to use for extending love and wisdom, joining in the mind, showing others that I'm not too concerned about this body. I can demonstrate to others that I'm not, I'm you know, not, when I say body identified, it's more, I'm not glorifying the body. I'm not associating myself as a body. So I can lead by example. I can show others, and we're all going to be doing this. I can show, look, I'm not denying the body. I'm being normal. I'm feeding it. I'm washing it, but I'm not identifying as it. I'm not making it different. I'm not saying it has to have anything different about it. I'm not making it special. I'm not comparing it to yours and making anything about it. I'm letting go of all that identity as a body, but not denying it. So there's a very fine line, because it can be very easy to try to deny the body, and that doesn't work. Try to identify a spirit, join the love of God, have experiences where you feel yourself risen up as something that's not in the body, or, so you can say to the Holy Spirit, give me an experience of not being a body. I used to say to the Holy Spirit all the time, give me this experience of non-duality. Give me this experience of no time, of the eternal now. If you really are sincerely, you'll be given it. It's wonderful. I had lots of great experiences because I was ready. We have to be ready for them. So we can start to move into this other mind, not the ego mind that thinks with separation. Its thoughts are based in separation. I think along the lines of God's love, God's infinite love. This love that created us is that infinite love, this vast, beautiful, holy love that we are. It's so peaceful. Yes, Nikki.
Is it possible to ask for an experience of not being a body when you haven't got rid of all your grievances?
Yeah, I think you can. I think if you really want an experience of being something other than the body, I think, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you've really got to want it. You've really got to say, if there's any fear about that experience, it won't happen. So, and it'll come in some way. You can't know how that's going to come in. Annie?
Yeah, I was just wondering about that, because I sort of had experiences where I had experiences of not being a body when I didn't even know I was looking for anything, sort of thing. I had experiences, I didn't even know I was asking for the whole course thing in a certain way, and I had, sort of kind of really huge light experiences and stuff like that. So it's funny because a lot of that asking can be coming from below a really conscious level in a certain way. And I definitely have a lot of friends who were just at their wits' end. They just were like, not consciously asking, but in a sense just gave up, and bam, they're shown everything sort of thing in an instant. So it's kind of a funny thing, the asking idea, I find too. I mean, it's probably a bit different once you're more consciously accepted the path and everything. But there must be some sort of deeper asking or unconscious asking that happens in moments throughout our time and space sojourn where something's shown to us. And it's sort of like, wow, where the hell did that come from, sort of thing.
Yeah, you can have experiences just coming in. There is sort of, there is an asking. There's something going on. I know when I was a child, I really loved Jesus, and I loved when I went to church. I felt very close to him at church, and I know I had a couple of experiences as a child with just that. So, and I mean, it's not sort of, even when I say it's the asking, I did ask on my journey, but it was really that I was coming to that place where I was open and ready for it, you could say, and I was just sort of there was no fear of it. And sometimes as a child you don't have fear. There's moments in your life where the fear drops away. I really can't say it's not like you can only have an experience if you ask for it. But I just wanted to say that if you really are wanting to have an experience, you can ask for it as well. You can just say, you know, Holy Spirit, I'm ready. I give up. I surrender. I really want to have this experience of this all-encompassing love. I really, you know, so it's really, it doesn't come from just a normal asking. It comes from this, I want the peace of God. I want to know what this eternal now is. Like, can you bring me some experience, because I want to go home to God. You know, I want to. So it was sort of that just that it's not just sitting there and an asking. It's the power behind our mind that really brings it in. But having said that, Annie, like what you were saying, is those experiences can come in without you seemingly consciously asking as well. Sure. But I say, what, you know, why not ask? If you're in the situation where you're really devoted to this journey to go back home, to the place you never left, but it seems to be out of awareness, and you're really ready to go past all the fear in your mind that the ego brings up, you can just say, I'm ready for this. I want to go past this. You can bring this experience in. So that's what I did. I would just say, okay, now I'd like to know, first of all, it was like, I'd like to know what this sort of now moment is that everyone talks about, you know, this present holy instant or whatever, you know, like there's many words for it. What is it? I don't know what that is, so can you show me what it is? So it's really just this, okay, I'm ready for this. I'd like to experience this. I'd like to see it. And I had no fear. And then it was about 3 or 4 days later, out walking my dog along the river. I just was walking. I wasn't thinking about much, and I just had this moment of clarity. It's like this illumination in my mind. Oh my gosh, it's always now. It's always now. I sort of was, it was like I had no awareness of that prior to that moment. Once I saw it, it has never left. So once these realizations or illuminations come into our mind, we can't unsee them. We've opened to them. And yeah, that's what I sort of work with the Holy Spirit. He was correcting all my perceptions about things. And so I was working in a very tangible way with Jesus and the Holy Spirit, saying, okay, I want to be free. I don't care what I have to go through to get to be free. I'm on a journey with my teachers. So you can say to your teacher, okay, so now, you know, this holy instant, this eternal now, I'm not experiencing that. I don't have any awareness of it. Help me get into that. So but that helped me get into that and see that is that really strong essence of I want this. I've already decided that I want to do this Course in Miracles exactly as it teaches me. I'm not going to make any concessions. I'm not going to try and change it. I'm going to become the student. So then the teacher, so the student's just saying, I'm ready for this. So he says, ready is not mastery. I'm willing. So I'm ready to have this experience and I'm willing to experience it. And I'm willing to, let go of everything. So, to have your mind completely change, you're going in from, this bubble of the ego to completely a whole different mindset. You're going to have a unified thought system of the Holy Spirit and Jesus and God, like God's thoughts. But really, does God have to have a thought? Isn't he just this perfect love? That's an experience. But the right-minded thoughts correct the wrong-minded. So we're going to go through a period of correction, what we call accepting the atonement for ourselves. We're going to go through that. But we have to be really vigilant. We have to want it. We have to say, I want the peace of God above being right, above my belief. I'm going to go through some fear, but I'm going to be carried across as I join with my teacher. I don't have to face this fear alone. Right? This fear that comes up, I'm going to say, okay, Holy Spirit, I'm in fear now. I need you. I'm going to sit quietly. I'm going to say, right, this huge fear's come up. Please come and help me. So when you go into fear, that's when you really need the help. And the worst part about it is when you're in a lot of fear, it's really hard to hear the Holy Spirit. That's what I noticed. I'd be like, I can't hear anything. I'm just so. But this is what really, it's like you have to do forgiveness at 100% then. Because it's easy on the days when you feel very aligned with truth. And the days when you're not, you just got to get down on your knees and just say, look, I let this go. I'm fearful. I've got to trust. So you're developing this bigger trust. Come and help me, bring me across, show me something, because we're going past body identification and our whole mind is identified as a body. So that gets undone little bit by little bit. But in the end, you have to let it all go. And it's beautiful. It is. The fear's going to leave. I went through the fear. I had to cross all those bridges of the fear. So we're all going to have that fear. He says fear is going to come in, but it won't last long. You're going to go across a little gap of fear. So it's natural to have fear on your journey. But the Holy Spirit's here. Jesus is here to help us. There is the helpers. We can't do this alone. We couldn't do it alone. We're living in a mind that is a failed thought system, and it's a closed thought system. We're just in a loop, around and around. There's no way out. It's like you're stuck in a ball. You can't get out. You have to find a hole, and you have to say, no, I don't know what this other thing is, but I've been told that it's much nicer than this place over here. And so I've got to give up what I know to enter something new. But what he says is the ego is going to make a big story about you giving up something really good. We have to say, no, I want to enter this formless, this Holy Spirit voice. I'm going to trust this. And we have to start to trust and let go, because we can't have this and hang on to a part of this. We can't hang on to a grievance of anyone here and enter the kingdom. You can't get to perfect love with a bit of hatred. You can't bring a bit of hatred inside you and have perfect love. It's impossible. That's it. So you have to be fully ready to let go of every bit of hatred, every grievance, everything. But you don't, when I say that, what happens is you only have to really forgive one character here completely, and you can enter the kingdom, because in that all characters are forgiven, because every person's representing the same thing in your mind. You're never really forgiving them. What you're doing is you're going past all the grievances that have been projected onto them, that you think it's in them, but it's never there. It's never in anyone else. You can't get out. It's all in your mind. You're living in your mind. It just looks like it's outside you, but it's all you clearing your mind. And that's revealed to you as you start to forgive it. Like, actually, this is all me. I'm healing my own mind. I'm moving. All right, so I think we should finish up now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. And let's just do a little blessing to each other. So let's just look into each other's eyes for a few minutes. And just do this, go around the group and just look at each person, image. It's just an image on the screen. It's nothing more. And let's just see the same holiness, the same perfection, the same Holy Spirit, Holy Son of God. So the blessing is just, I love you, my brother. I see your sinlessness. You are sinless. You are guiltless. You are perfect. You are whole. Join you in that wholeness. And just that's generally the, in your own words, but just go around the group, look at each one. Okay. It's beautiful. It's very healing, because it's only yourself you ever see. All right, I love you guys. See you next week. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.